This is Phantom Electric Ghost, and we are live on our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch channels with Damen Samuel and Ebony Isaac. And you've probably seen them before because on the 16th through the 18th, well, it was actually on the 17th, I believe, day 2 of the PEG Bedroom Producer Festival, they actually had a performance where they have a video they did together, and then Damen played live from Australia, where he is right now. So now we have both of these artists on live today, and we did it a little bit different because everybody who had been on the PEG Producer Festival had been interviewed by me in the podcast, because that's what the festival was about, was taking people we interview and then allowing them to have a performance. So today we're going to do the interview. And so what we want to do is actually show everybody your song Perfectly Alone so that they can get a feel for what you guys sound like. And then we'll go through a full interview. So if that's cool, I'm going to set that up, and that's your video. And then I'm going to put everybody on mute, and then we're going to get into the video, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about your work and your work together and your work alone and separately and everything in between. So, okay.
Sounds great.
Okay. So I'm going to put everybody on mute. Hold a second.
Hi, I'm Ebony Isaac, and this is Damen Samuels, and this is Perfectly Alone. I don't know what's going on with me. All I know is that I cannot see what's in front of me and what I need to do. I wish that I knew. The madness is driving me crazy, and I can't see past that. Maybe I need to get it together, work it out somehow before it messes up what I'm doing now, Cause I'm perfect, so perfectly alone. And I know that it's easy to see that I'm so sad, but being happy is the main thing that I wanna be. If I can find it, I will. I'm so easily aggravated with what is going on in my life. I find a reason to cry whenever I can, 'cause I think it makes things alright. But all it does is gives me a headache, and well, I need to find a new way, a new plan to make people understand that I'm not the one who runs it, I'm just being me. And you should know that if you can't accept it, then I am perfect, so perfectly alone. And I'm so tired of it, can't you see? And I am sad, so sad, and no one understands it. The smile that you see. Let it baby, dun dun dun. I am perfect, so perfectly alone, and I'm so tired of it. Can't you see? And I am sad, so sad and happy at the same time. And I wish you knew it. The feeling takes over, and what do you do with it? I don't know. I wanna know, so I won't be perfectly alone. I don't know. I wanna know, so I won't be perfectly alone.
So that was Perfectly Alone, and we're back with Damon Samuel and Ebony Isaac. And that was great. Everybody's mic is on, right?
Yep,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
that was
did
a
it. I
hit.
did it right. Yeah, good.
You
But
know what you're doing.
yeah, no transitions. That's cool. I think maybe we'll go ladies first because we'll do that. So I have your bio, and I like to ask questions. And I think I sent them. I don't know if you got them, but so Ebony, when did you first get into music? Like at what age did you decide that you wanted to do music?
I have been singing for as long as I can remember, honestly. Honestly. I think 6, 7, making
Yeah,
up my own songs and making other kids sing songs with me.
that's really interesting because like I've been interviewing people since 2018, like 70 something artists around the world, and like a majority of the artists I talk to say like when they were under 10 years old is when they first got into it. And so it
Hmm.
seems like people who are creatives seem to know it really early, you
Mm.
Yeah,
know, that they kind of have it in their bones that like they got to do it and they just
Yeah.
start as soon as they can.
absolutely. I think it has
So
a lot to do with Disney.
maybe,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe so. Yeah, even the Mickey Mouse Club, they had everybody, wanting to be a pop star back in the
Absolutely.
day. Yeah, if anybody remembers the old school, I'm talking about like the black and white one.
I did. What you gonna sailboat, Mickey? I got you.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. So when did you start working on music and actually developing that you knew you'd want to, be a musician? Because I think people they get into it, they want to, they do covers, they emulate people they like, but then like what made you want to write your own music?
I think I've always written my own songs, not even knowing that I was doing it because it was like a little bit of poetry, a little bit of music. Um, but when I actually started recording, there was this project called the Dream Project that we did with the kids, and there was the opportunity to actually do it. And from there was like, oh no, this has to be done. And then I met Lord Taff, and the rest is history. Met this game right here.
That's interesting because
Yeah, so
I met Lord Toth through my wife, who's like an author. My wife is like an author and a playwright, and so she had a relationship where she was working with Lord Toff and she was doing some stuff with him. And then she told me that well, you should interview him. So I
Mm.
interviewed Lord Toff, and then we kept in touch. And I told him about the Bedroom Producer Festival, and he mentioned you guys. He said,
Mm.
"Oh, you got to get Damon, and you got to get Ebony. You got to get them to get on the show." And I was like, "Okay, that's cool," and that's how I got to you guys.
shoot.
But yeah, he's always introducing everybody to everybody else. But
Yeah. He's looking
it's
out
interesting.
for his crew.
That's good though.
Yeah, it's good to have connections.
Absolutely. The more the merrier too, especially good minded, like good like minded people doing music
Mm.
together. So
Yeah,
yeah,
creative folks who are
yeah,
like independent minded and
absolutely.
and believe in what we believe in. I think
Yes.
in this kind of zone in the market,
Mm.
I'm a big supporter of like everybody who's like a do it themselves indie artist,
Yeah.
a bedroom producer type of vibe.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I think that's where the cool stuff happens. People
Absolutely.
go on to YouTube, they go on to the smaller platforms is where everything's happening on the SoundCloud, from the mumble rappers and the EDM artists on SoundCloud like myself,
Hmm.
to the people who just you get word of mouth, or
Yeah.
you work with people and then you get opportunities and you tour and you do the work as a working musician.
Absolutely. And I think it gives you that freedom to be yourself uniquely and not have to worry about trending and sounding like other people too, I like
Yeah,
it. So it's like in your own, when you're in your own zone, you feel comfortable to do whatever it is you feel and you please. And there's just a level of like confidence to where it's like, I'm
yeah.
going to do this and
Less
But
it belongs to
restrictions.
me.
David, go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah, I was just saying less restrictions. You can actually just, I guess, stay true to your artistic self. You may just express yourself without having to
Absolutely.
worry about limitations. And it's interesting because when you listen to a lot of like big artists, that's where they go and steal their ideas. They go to SoundCloud, they go to like little independent sites, see what's happening, and then they
Yeah.
pretend
There's all
they
these
came up with it.
ghostwriters. There's a lot of
Yeah.
ghostwriters. There's a lot of people who are from the underground that might not get credit. It may be in the back
Hmm.
end to get credit. But yeah, the people always trolling. It's like even Bowie, David Bowie, not that he was doing, but he used to go to clubs and just sit in the back
Yeah,
and go find artists that he would
yeah,
bring in and
yeah.
just say, hey, this, he would just suddenly show up and say, hey, this guy's kicking, and boom, he found Stevie Ray Vaughan before Vaughan was even big. I don't know if everybody knows that. For Let's Dance, Stevie Ray
Wow.
Vaughan does the guitar solo, and
Mm,
Bowie actually found him before he actually got his big first album.
uh,
Stevie was just a Texas bluesman. He hadn't gotten out of Texas, and Bowie heard him and then
mm,
said, "Oh, I want this guy on my record." And it was like simultaneous, like
Oh,
mm,
Stevie's album broke at the same time he did that,
uh,
and that's this, kind of like a Lord Toff type of idea, but you know, finding people and then
yeah.
knowing where to place them in your
yeah.
work is always really cool. I think that's really cool when people do that.
Yeah.
So, who are your influences or your reference points? I always ask people like who inspired them. Everybody always talks about the Beatles and Marvin Gaye and all the Motown people, and but who are your like heroes or reference points?
Oh, Stevie Wonder. Absolutely. Stevie Wonder, Anita Baker. Oh, God, Anita Baker. Yes. Aaliyah,
Hmm.
Whitney Houston, for sure. Mariah Carey. Yes, 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 Mariah. Um, those are a couple. I like Neo for
Hmm.
sure. His sound, his uniqueness.
Well, I
I
think
can't
today
think of
what's
it.
interesting is there's a lot of merging. Like if
Yes.
Mm,
you listen to hip hop, they're bringing in jazz, they're
Oh yeah.
bringing in like rock and funk. It was always funk. Hip hop
Hmm.
kind of took the whole Parlor and Funkadelic catalog. They took the whole
Absolutely.
James Brown catalog.
Oh,
Uh,
and speaking of funk and stuff, Earth, Wind, and Fire for sure. And don't forget Kenny G. Yes,
Kenny
Lord.
G.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
I used
yeah.
to make up songs to all of his hits.
Well, it's great to hear that stuff. I'm a big fan of like funkadelic, but I'm also into like experimental stuff like from Sun Ra. Sun Ra is like I don't know if you're into jazz, but it's like an unheralded, unknown jazz artist that's like
mm,
very big now. Space is
Okay.
the if you ever got into it. They were from the '50s, and
mm,
they actually dressed up like funkadelic before funkadelic. They were a
Sweet.
jazz bebop band and they dressed up like Funkadelic in '74 and '58. They
mm,
actually dressed up like they were from Mars. They wore these capes and weird hats and all kinds of stuff, and they had this kind of weird Afro cosmic vibe that
wow.
George actually put into Funkadelic. He actually got it from them.
There you go.
Look,
Um,
see?
You have to send some links to check it out.
yeah, they're cool. Yeah, but they have a really interesting sound. They sound as good as like Davis or Coltrane when they started. They were like classic bebop. They
Yeah.
have this album called Jazz and Silhouette. It's not really cosmic, and then you have an album like Space is the Place, where they
Mm,
just have a chant, kind of like Coltrane's Love Supreme. They say Space is the Place is like a chant, like the way the Love Supreme
mm,
goes in that song. If you've ever heard it from a Coltrane, but yeah, it's like I try to take esoteric, weird things in my music, and that's why it goes expansive sound is the idea. Because today you can take things from anything. You can take some Johnny
Oh
Cash,
yeah.
mix it with Funkadelic, and mix it with the Stones, and mix it with this, and mix it with that. I think that's what makes everything sound good.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So maybe talk about your relationship with Lord Toff and the stuff you did with him and how that came to be.
He's like truly, he's my everything. He is my everything. Within meeting him, of course, like you just kind of you wonder, like, are you for real? This is too good to be true. Are you for real? And then he just shows proof all the time. Super encouraging, open to ideas and thoughts, and he'll, if he's asking you to try something, and you're like, well, what about this? Like, there's never any pushback at all. One of my favorite songs, I believe we've done together, outside of Perfectly Alone, um, is I I want to say it's The Chase. The Chase is
Mm.
one of my favorite songs that he's produced. Just I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, that's mine. I have to do this. We have to do this. Um, yeah, just I, I mean, I don't even think I can put into words how appreciative I am for him and what he does and what he's doing for me, for Damon, for Monty Kristoff as a whole. Just for our family, he's amazing.
Now, because of COVID, how has the work gone? Has it been just all remote? Or have you been able to actually
No,
go
no,
to New York?
no, and not because he wouldn't allow me to, because he would definitely love to see me as I would love to see him. I I just don't want to put us at risk. I feel like doing my part, is staying here, being safe, keeping my immune system high, vice
Mhm.
versa for him and everybody else until we're in the clear
Yeah.
for sure. So yeah, this is how we've been communicating, and I have been getting better
Yeah,
at all
I
of
mean,
this.
this is weird because like when I started the Ghost, I'm a bedroom producer. Because all
Hmm.
my gear, that's like my whole studio is actually in my bedroom. Um, and
Big bedroom.
That's a
and
lot.
I actually have cameras and stuff, and I've been going live from my bedroom since 2016. Um,
Mm.
Sweet.
and so I was already kind of set up to handle the pandemic because that's what I always did. All I ever did was like
You're waiting
every
for
album I
it.
ever
Yeah, you were on time.
every album I ever did, I had Skypes. Like in
Okay.
2016 and 2015, I was working with people in LA and in Sweden and Netherlands. It was always on a Skype, and people were saying, "Well, how do you do that?" And I said, "Well, that's the only way I know how to do it."
Mm. Yeah.
But it's like now everybody's doing what I've been doing for a while.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's interesting. It's like I think musicians found a way to make it happen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because like the art is not going to stop. Right.
No,
So we all
never.
found, yeah, we found a way to keep it going.
I mean,
So
without music, there is empty. There's noise, and even noise is gonna turn into music eventually. Like you
yeah,
can't
well,
take
yeah,
it
So
away.
that's how it
I
started.
take I take like white noise, brown noise, pink noise.
Yeah,
I'm a
like drips
yeah,
of water, and all of a sudden you're like,
yeah,
yeah,
that's something.
ah, yeah.
I could take anything. I take a wood block and throw it against the wall, and then take a microphone and then sample it and resample it and do all this.
Absolutely.
I'm kind of crazy like that, but yeah. So let me see. Like maybe bring Damon in a little bit because we're giving you the focus, ladies first. But I want to get into like your background as well because we're gonna kind of just a dual interview. So Damon, when did you first start into music?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like singing probably later, but music was always there. Like my mother always talks about this story when I was like in my nappies, on the kitchen table dancing to Elvis, like moving my like moving my hips to Elvis, and I was probably I don't know maybe a year and a half. And the first recollection is like me actually getting involved is when I was probably 6. I mean I can't find it hard to believe now, but I was actually sitting in my bedroom and putting together the mixtapes. So basically, I was taking certain sounds that I liked on the cassette tape, cutting it
Yeah.
out with sticky tape and put it back together. I made my own mixes.
Oh, your own
And
engineer. You were doing
because
all.
Ooh.
but you know
That's
what it was? Because I grew up in East Germany. So the thing is, technology-wise, or like tools that were available, we were a little bit behind. So the thing is, you had to use what you had. And so like
yeah,
it became very creative, like recording things on the TV and then using it in mixes and like a little fairy tales mixed with I don't know, electronic music. And so early on, I kind of like really, was really fascinated with putting music together. I probably was better then than I'm now with putting sounds together. And then probably when I became a teenager, 13, 14, going through, kind of self-discovery, identity, and really kind of, I don't know, the internal struggles, I started writing lyrics, and it was kind of like my way to, start expressing myself and using music as a tool of like, actually almost mental health to actually make it through life and, kind of describe the world that I found myself in and making sense of it. So I think, that's when writing really came into. And
did you write like poetry before you wrote lyrics?
That's right. Yeah. So I was literally writing poetry and then, turned into songs. Yeah.
Did you find the transition between poetry and songs was like a little difficult? Because I was a poet before I ever got into music, and I kept it totally separate for years.
Oh, wow.
I never introduced my poetry into music. And then one day I said, well, what if I take these poems and turn them into songs?
Yeah.
And then they had to change a lot because I was doing like, spoken word stuff, and it wasn't really meant to be sung.
Yeah. Yeah, and I never found that, like, for me, even until this day, I feel like there's certain pieces that just come and they stay just words because, like I think there's a certain, let's say, rhythm, harmony within words as well. And sometimes it just leads you towards a song. And sometimes it just stays, like the words in itself, they're just potent enough and they just have enough to just keep them the way they are. So I think, that's something that just naturally happened. Like, certain things I didn't consider them songs, and others, you can just see from the structure and the way they came together, like, oh, that's a song. And then usually, like, the melody, and then, for me, the guitar was always kind of like my tool to turn into songs. Like, if I sit down with a guitar and, try some of the words, and then it usually, takes me somewhere. Even though my influences are very broad. Like, I love, a lot of electronic music. Like, my very first band that I was, in love with was Kraftwerk, or Kraftwerk, like you said in German, Kraftwerk, which is power station. And like, the late 60s, early 70s, one of the first bands using computers to create music. And I remember just sitting there as a kid, like, having vinyl and just listening to their sounds and just being so amazed and taken away to other places. It was like,
yeah, Kraftwerk was the beginning of the Minneapolis sound because Prince heard them, and he actually took their sound, which was very progressive. I mean, they're like a Yes. Kraftwerk is like Yes in Genesis, but they were going in a different direction. It's kind of got that kind of Bowie-esque Brian Eno kind of thing, that Berlin sound. And then when Prince took it and it actually figured out how to shorten it and turn them into pop songs, to turn it into like a 1999 or Red Corvette and take that vibe, which was a really progressive, like, art rock thing, and then make it actually melodic. Which was not that it wasn't melodic, but it was more classical, it was more stark, it was more experimental,
And also, like, Germans, like, it's very kind of, I don't want to say robotic, but Germans, like, a lot of the
robotic.
It's not for. There's not a lot of variety when it comes to, like, even time signatures, very much straightforward. And I think, that gives it a certain vibe and feel, which at times, like, it might not be so appealing to people who like funk or jazz, or a bit more like,
I think the genius of it is like taking something like that and then, bringing the Lynn drum in, bring in some like funkadelic style like bass lines and just mixing it up, like between taking like Sly and James Brown, but then bringing in Kraftwerk. It's that's the idea of like expansive genre bending, that when you do that, then you get something new. I mean, the Minneapolis sound is a combination of Santana and funkadelic and Hendrix and all these things. And, and when I hear in your sound, I hear this singer-songwriter tradition, like a Dylan, like Bob Marley, like Ben Harper. You got this like really strong songwriter, kind of like a 70s vibe, like a Neil Young, but you're more modern. You got a modern take on it, but you're coming from that kind of zone. To me, that's what I feel.
No, it's interesting because like, that's what I'm saying. Sound wise, I love electronic music. Like, I love Radiohead, who went from rock into electronic music. I love I grew up with Depeche Mode, The Cure, the 80s synth sounds, like but when it comes to writing, because not having to rely on anybody else, taking a guitar and start telling a story, you can just do it in your bedroom. It's fun bedroom
studios. Yeah, whole
That's,
world.
that's right. And I think, like I spent years like in a bedroom in apartment buildings, but I didn't have much, space, or even, I couldn't be very loud. So just, like sitting there with a guitar and start writing songs. And I think that's kind of like how my sound developed. Not necessarily because that's what I want to do, but it was kind of like the easiest way to do, if that makes sense. I didn't need a band. I didn't need any
Yeah,
equipment.
well, getting all these synths and stuff is like not the easiest thing to do. And before they had DAWs, you had to do what I do, with like have a stack of synths on top of each other, and figure out how to be your own recording engineer, because you got to link them all together, and then you got to link the drum machine, do the MIDI, and all. That's a lot of work. Now people can take a DAW, and they can take a drum machine off the DAW, and everything's in the box, right?
Yeah.
So they can kind of build everything. They grab samples, grab this, and so you could have the headphones on, and you're not bugging anybody, right? But back in the day when I was starting with a band, we were in the basement with like Les Pauls and Fender Strats and like some orange amplifiers, pissing off the neighbors. Trying to sound like the Clash, we're a bunch of black kids. Me and my brother's like, what are you guys doing? Why you sound like rock? It's like, well, because we like rock, because rock was invented by black folks. Don't you know that?
Yeah.
Let's share the history. Yeah, that's right.
They some people get confused. It's like you never heard of Lead Belly and Robert Johnson? It's like rock is like, it's not the Stones. Like they took the Robert Johnson.
That's right.
At least they respect it.
It's funny because my first when I started singing, actually, like kind of for the first time really getting into it, was actually in kind of new metal bands. It's kind of like Rage Against the Machine and like early '90s probably, and I had some friends that we played in some garden away from the city because it was too loud. I was literally just screaming, and it was kind of like my first start into music, because I think at that age too, you want to express all the anger that you have in you.
It's gonna be like Zeppelin. I mean, we're all trying. I'm like a child of the '70s, right? So I'm 52 years old, and so like when we started to play, we were all trying to play like Black Dog. We're playing like Zeppelin, playing like Aerosmith, and we're playing like all this hard, Stones stuff, and and then when we got to the '80s, I'm trying to sound like the Clash and Johnny Rotten. And it just like that. But then I heard like Joy Division, and then when I heard Joy Division, I'm like, I want synths, and so I started looking around for synths, and I got into New Order, and I got into The Cure, and I got into Depeche Mode and Duran. So that's my sound evolved. Was like I was a punk, and I was trying to sound very punk, and I was a black punk, and trying to be as hard as I could. And then I was like, whoa, these synthesizers, you can do all this interesting stuff. You can bring classical, you can bring jazz, you can do all this other stuff. And I said, wow. And then I got the band because they just want to be a bunch of rockers. And I said, we could, look at what Duran's doing. Look what Joy Division's doing. We should do that. And then, that's how we kind of got into, where I am now. Everybody else got married and I kept on going.
It's interesting when you talk about all those different sounds, because like, at times you can get really caught up in like, oh, what are you going to create and all this. And what I love, like, especially like having somebody like Ebony, like when you just actually take it back to the song and to the voice and just like, hey, let's just sing a song. Let's just like, it can be literally just two vocals, a guitar, something, a piano, just really stripped back and really, pure, because, I'm a songwriter. I love songs. I love, lyrics. And so I think in the end of the day, as much I love sounds and I really can get lost in it, I love the simplicity of a good song, and so, and it's something that, really draws me to great singers. Like, Ebony's somebody, when I hear sing each time, there's such a joy and so much expression and passion in it. And it's just, you don't need anything else. It's almost like get away, like get out of the way and let the voice do the work. So, yeah.
That's why I always talk to people who like are vocalists, is like, your vocal, if you're a vocalist, that's your instrument. Right?
Yeah.
So, and so if you get to the core, you can start with like just like tapping on a desk and singing. You don't have to have all the stuff that a lot of us techie like.
No, but you know what the bad part about that is? So you start to get these songs going in your head, so then you're singing them to people, and then they're trying to like play you, and you're like, no, because now you started hearing things in your head. You're going, no, yeah, not like that. And like this a little bit, like ding, ling, 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 ling. And they're like, what? And ding, 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 ding. You'll hear that, like.
You hear stories about Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones, and he used to like hum his part to Quincy, and they'd be back and forth, telling all the musicians what. Cause Michael had that, he would know what he wanted. And so he couldn't go on a piano like Prince and do it, but he
Yeah.
could tell Quincy, or he could tell somebody, this is what I want. You know, that's like James Brown. James Brown with his band, he would just like, if you listen to, I got all these old tapes of him telling people, like the bass player, what to play. And he would actually hum out the bass line.
Yep.
And he would go and say, he would tell people what the drum line should be.
I think I have one of Michael Jackson CDs like that with like a lot of behind the scenes. Oh, which song was it? But they were using like jars and that ting ting like to make the sound. It was like him and Janet and somebody else. And I was like, oh, I love that they put this on here because you don't know. No one ever knows the behind the scenes story until we're able to do interviews and they're saying, oh, well, what happened that day? Well, it was rainy and we were all upset at each other and blah, blah, blah. And now it's the #1 charter.
I'm always entranced by like what goes into a record. I watch all of these documentaries. I read all this stuff because I interview people. And I'm always like trying to dive into, like I get a lot of bands on like just as they put an album out. And there's a lot of podcasters that go like 15-minute podcasts, but I go like an hour and a half. Like if I've got a band that releases an album, like I had this one artist, she was working on an album for like 5 years. And I actually got her 2 years into it. And she, the album wasn't out. And we talked for like an hour and a half about what she was doing. Right. And then there was no example of it. And then her name's Posthumous, and she was in the Bedroom Festival. And she finally released her album. And, I did a podcast like a week before, and then I got to actually see her put together what she had been talking about for like 2 years.
That's dope.
And it's like really cool because I went back and listened, and what she was describing, now I can hear it. You know, and that's really cool. I think that's when, I love to allow musicians to get to that level, you know, to tell their audience and their fans who want to know that instead of knowing who your boyfriend or girlfriend or what you did. I'm not into that. That's not what I'm into. So is there any story about anything you're working on that whoever wants to go first about like new stuff you're working on that you want to kind of talk about and tell the audience, what is like you're excited about how it's coming together?
Yeah,
I'll let you go first.
I think just briefly, like, I think Perfectly Alone would be the next, single or, piece that we're going to work on together. So I'm really keen. I started working on the guitar part and just, maybe a little organ piano. So I'm just fiddling around a little bit. I'm going to send it to her soon. And hopefully we're going to get it out later this year. So that's basically, in a way, it's also like it's kind of like a almost a comeback because we haven't had a chance to work together for the last few years because, I've been busy over here and we haven't really had that much contact, sadly, like musically. So it's kind of like a reawakening, So it's really exciting. There's a few other ideas that are floating around that we hopefully can turn into, like a little, I don't know, maybe even an EP or something. See how it goes. Yeah.
Oh wow! So you're thinking of having like a maybe 4 or 5 song EP?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and it's kind of like, it's always like, the reality of life and everyday life and different commitments and different projects you're working on. And then it's actually like the passion, like, each time I talk to Ebony, he's like, please send me some songs. I feel like I get so carried away. I want to record something right away. And so, my heart is definitely in it to record a bunch of songs over the next, few months, hopefully. And again, the space, I'm not a big fan of this space. I love to like dedicate a week or two, be in a room with somebody and just knock it out. Like, I've done my albums in the past a lot like that. Because, you're in the moment and just, you probably get a year's work of work done in a week, when you really have the time and the space. And so, it is at times a bit frustrating having all this kind of stop and go. But, and, Ebony's working on some other things, so I'll let her speak.
Just some children's songs. Nothing big.
I grew up on Sesame Street and Electric Company and stuff like that.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And they're full of songs, so people write songs, for those things. And it's I think it's cool to use songs to teach children. I think that's a really cool thing.
Or just even songs that are just good for them to see, like that you're not going to be worried about them singing, that are just happy and sweet and allowing them to be children. Yes.
Yeah. Kids they get onto SoundCloud too early.
Yes.
Then you're like, what are you saying?
And they don't even realize it.
You don't even know what
they're just going for it, and you're
I
like,
just like the beat. It's like I just like the beat. Dude. I like the beat. It's like you know what that means.
yeah, no, but so don't say it, please.
Hey, Ebony, you were sharing one last week with me. I can't remember the title of it, but we shared like a little bit. Do you mind maybe doing a
I,
little give us a
oh,
little
for
taster?
sure. Yeah, for sure. Which one was it? It is. Oh, okay. Yes. Um. Everything about you is perfect. Everything in your own way. Even when you smile, it's perfect. 'Cause I can make the tears go away. So don't feel sad and don't feel blue. 'Cause I am here to comfort you. Just look here into my eyes. You're perfect. I know because I've tried to find a flaw, but I can't find one at all. Your little nose, your little toes, your tummy, you see, it's perfect to me. And then it just kind of keeps going. But that's a
Uh,
song about
It goes good with the perfectly
yeah,
alone.
right? Perfectly
Yeah,
alone. Yes.
it fits in the same EP.
Yes.
Kind of
And
has
that's
it kind of reminds me of like a Carpenter's vibe. You know, it's kind of got that
mm,
70s kind of wholesome
mm,
thing. You know, the
mm,
Karen
and that's how I
Carpenter.
want it to be. Like I said, just super like simple. I
Yeah,
want the kids. I want it to be catchy. I want it to be about,
mm.
you know what I'm saying, and just happy,
yeah,
uplifting. Like just singing about your baby. They're perfect.
yeah. It's hard to find that anymore because back in the 70s, you'd have like a lot of things like the Captain and Tennille and you know, and then Carpenters were doing this kind of really soft rock, really melodic, kind of wholesome thing. Nixon loved it,
Hmm.
but we got invited to the White House. But but you know, the thing is like interesting thing about Karen Carpenter though her voice was so beautiful, but it was full of melancholy.
Mm.
Even when she was singing something happy, you like felt there's like overwhelming melancholy, like
Hmm.
that she was able to convey no
Yeah,
matter what. And
yeah.
and it's just something. There's a beauty in it that was like, wow, that's like really rare. You don't really hear that kind of
Yeah.
thing as much anymore.
It's funny because it goes back to the storytelling. When it doesn't matter what indigenous culture you look into. Like usually the storytelling is something that it's been around for the longest. Like there's mothers humming little songs or stories to their children to teach them about life. And all this. And
Hmm.
I think it's this combination of being soothed and feeling kind of safe, but then also kind of being aware of the broader world. And
Of
I
what's
think
happening. Yeah.
like when anybody hears like a lullaby, like it reminds me of, it's
Yeah,
just this, takes you back to being a child yourself, and I think that's where the connection is.
Yes.
Yeah.
it's like that nursery rhyme kind of comfort. Like you know, your
Mm,
mom's like
Absolutely.
is a reading like a nursery rhyme, or you know today's well when I was a kid, it's like Richard Scarry and Dr. Seuss books. My mom would read them to me, and I'm like, oh, where's Goldbug? Where's this? And information into that, but um, it's just you know, it makes you feel good. I mean, sometimes like I'm a child of the '70s. I get comfort when I hear like 1970s stuff. It
Hmm.
kind of brings me back because my mom would be like putting me to sleep to the Carpenters
Yes.
mm,
or playing like Earth, Wind, and Fire, and it makes me kind of feel,
Hmm.
you know, oh wow,
mm.
now I feel kind of because everything in the world today is like you got all this new stuff, but it's like that anything from the '70s kind of makes me feel nostalgic, and it
Yes.
makes me feel happy, and I'm always trying to pick up that vibe because I think it's
And it's
good.
able to sound that they were able to make it new. I don't want to say everybody's running out of sound now, but it's like everything was so new then. And it's like I feel like now people don't even feel like they need to take the time to be different a little bit. It's like, oh no, 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 I don't know about that. It's like, no, I know about it. Let's do it. Like, I mean, how don't you know about it? We won't know about it unless you try it. Let's
Yeah,
try it. Let's do
when you
it.
think about it, like you like if people aren't willing to take risks, like you'd never get Hendrix, you wouldn't get
Hmm.
what Stevie Wonder did on like
Oh,
Saturn. Like we think about like one of the albums I as a synthesizer player, right? I listen to songs in the key of life all the time because songs in the key of life has like amazing synthesizer work on it. And the thing
what's
is
your
like
favorite one?
well, Saturn. I love Saturn.
Okay, Saturn. Okay.
And because of the synthesizer work, there's a famous Yamaha synthesizer called a GX1, the Dream Machine. It was like a $300,000 machine that he got Barry Gordy to get him because he was such a good artist. And he said, "Hey, I want this GX1." And Barry Gordy's like, "What?" It's like, it's $300,000. It's like, well, you're Stevie Wonder, so you can have it. But it's all over that album because it's one of the world's first polyphonic analog synthesizers. And what that means is synthesizers up to that point could only do one note at a time. The GX1 could do two-handed chords. So that's why you hear Saturn sounds like an orchestra, but it doesn't sound like violins. Because it's different. It sounds totally different. It was his interpretation of what an orchestra would sound like, but using this otherworldly machine. And then he's using this modern machine to do this song about, people on Saturn live to be 305, right? So it's gotten this real modern machine talking about Saturn and this whole idea of the politics of like the world is like, you leave and go to Saturn where you don't have war, you don't have this. I just thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
Even to this day, it's like one of the best progressive pieces of music. And he's an African American artist, and sometimes people don't put him in the list of the great keyboardists for synthesizers. But for synthesizers, if you look at his work on that album, it's just amazing. There's not that many. Keith Emerson's cool, and the guys from Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, they're cool. But Stevie Wonder's like right up there with him in terms of what he did in terms of the construction of that record.
It's funny, when I was a kid, my mom had a record collection. Stevie was everywhere. Like Stevie was something that's something I grew up with. And just to keep in mind, I didn't speak English until my 20s. So the thing is, when I grew up with music, which was mainly English, speaking, I was like, it's so much about the sound and the feel of it, because you don't understand the lyrics. I mean, you get the sense what it's about, but you don't understand other than love. He's all about that. And so it's interesting when you actually become an adult and you kind of revisit those songs and you listen to them, like, and you actually now understand the lyrics. It's quite interesting because you kind of get a different perspective on it. But the sounds are always like something that stayed with me too from that time, listening to those albums.
So just his lyrical content, just everything.
I mean, it's like it's as deep as Dylan and the Beatles and Marley. His lyrical content in the 70s when he did like Inner Visions, he did the songs in the Key of Life, he did all the coloring book, talking book. He had three albums in a row that were like 5-star records, as good as anything the Beatles and the Stones did. If you read Rolling Stone,
yes,
not a band.
He had a big band that he actually rehearsed. That was pretty cool. But he was one guy pretty much writing everything, and then he taught the band. And he's just amazing genius level musician. And you only get a guy that comes close to him was like Prince. Sign of the Times is kind of like his that songs in the Key of Life is like that for Prince. But I mean, he was inspired the same way. I mean, Prince totally idolized Stevie. I've got.
But I'm on the right track.
you knew you're doing the right thing. Stevie would play with him at Paisley Park sometimes, and they both like. I mean, Miles Davis played with Prince. People who were at like really high level respected the fact that he was in the same zone. And that's where I kind of come from, like the appreciation of singer songwriters, people who really want to put it down and not afraid to do something different. Like you said, like today's a lot of people, they want to go and say, well, sound like Beyonce, sound like Drake, sound like this, and everybody wants to do what's already been done.
Yeah.
And
it's like, no, sound like you. Sound like you.
Why not sound like you?
Because you're the only you out there.
That's what's going to make something new happen. If everybody keeps doing the same thing, you're going to end up having like a million copies of the same thing.
Same thing over and over and over.
But that's why I think it has been the case for a long time.
Yeah,
when you look at pop music for the last, I don't know, probably 30, 40, 50 years, once the music became like an industry, it has been like this for a long time. There's a certain sound, somebody's daring to go forward, and then they're trying to market it and make money of it. And and I think
you get these you get these big producers that make everybody think that that's what you should do. Yeah, you get 10 big producers and they control everything that's coming out. So then suddenly everybody thinks that you can't deviate from that formula.
From that, yeah,
right. So if you come in and you're an artist and you bring in a jazz change, like oh my God, you actually did a key change. You did a BPM change. You can't do that. You
Yeah.
can't do that.
I
That's not the
can.
rule book. That's not the rule
Yeah,
book.
like where? Yeah, what happened?
Yeah, what happened?
That's what I'm doing.
That's what I'm doing. That's what it's supposed to be. It's like, go listen to the Motown songs. Go listen to the
And
Temptations. How many times did they actually change, what they're doing in some of the more elaborate songs? They started getting
Mhm.
more, and if you listen to the Beatles, what did they do? They went from being a boy band to being an experimental art rock band,
Mhm.
with these big, long, drawn out songs that had multiple parts. They were kind of previewing. By the time you got to Abbey Road, you got what Pink Floyd would ended up doing, what
Mhm.
like Steely Dan and all these other bands started doing these like songs that had, you get to the Eagles with Hotel California, you get these, and the Queen with Bohemian Rhapsody.
Rhapsody, yeah.
It's the idea that you can take a song, you don't have to be 3 minutes, you don't have to be 2 minutes, but now everybody has forgotten the Bohemian Rhapsody lesson, forgotten the Stairway to Heaven lesson, and everybody's
I
saying
mean,
only do a 2-minute song.
they've forgotten Buster Rhymes and Missy Elliott. It's like so.
Yeah, you can't do anything over like 3 minutes, and like how many
Yeah,
great songs from the 70s are
are
longer.
longer than 3 minutes.
But
I can remember my mother saying, going to a party, everybody was in shape because they danced, and then you flipped to side B, and you kept on, you kept
Yeah,
on going.
James Brown's got songs that are like 18 minutes long.
Hmm.
you know, you've got 2 songs on one side.
Yeah, but when it feels good, you just when you're in that moment, you just can't stop. And when you hear that like that production and those songs, it's just it like goes through your veins like, ooh, like I can't even. It's not even a word. It's just a feeling. It's like and then you rewind it and you're like, do you hear that? Like listen to that part right there, that because even if it's small, it makes the whole entire thing just come
Well,
together.
I
Like,
try to tell
oh,
people that happy accidents are really what makes a song. And if you let a computer tell you that it's a bad key or it's a bad BPM and you go and you sterilize it, problem I hear today is there's a lot of people who have sterilized perfect music.
everything is to the
hmm
grid.
Yeah,
yep.
it's totally on the grid and it's totally perfect and it sounds great. It's got all these compressors, all this cool stuff. But like I'll go back and I'll say to some guys, like, I'll pull my Exile on Main Street out and I'll pull out Keith Richards playing. And you cannot track Keith Richards to the BPM on the chart. You can't, because he doesn't play like that. He plays like a jazz guy. And
hmm
if you go listen to Jerry Garcia, listen to Frank Zappa, all these guys won't fit on the grid, right? And the stuff is brilliant. And I always tell the young guys when I'm working with them, like, that's the way I like to produce a song. So like, just forget about the grid and just play it.
And just play. I mean, and that comes right back full circle to Perfectly Alone because that was completely unplanned. We were all just there together in this room, and it was hot, and it was just like he started strumming, and I'm just like that, and Lord Top was like, "What do you mean that?" And he was able to figure it out, and he started looping and playing, and then I just started singing, and here we are.
I think that's the best way to. I mean, I'm a very big believer in the old school, kind of like a band would just jump in. I was reading about Fleetwood Mac, and Fleetwood Mac is like
Ooh, yes.
they would be in the Sunset Studio, at Sound City, and they would just be on this Neve board, this analog board, and they would just like the drummer to start playing, and then any of the guys in the band would just start jamming something, and then they would just throw it together.
They just
And
start
it's kind of
playing.
like there's nothing like a band being actually in the studio with
Hmm
really good musicians vibing off each other. Like I listen to a story about the Allman Brothers, about like bands like that, Funkadelic, and and Bernie Worrell, and George and all those guys and Bootsy just like vibing. And playing for like a half hour to 2 hours, and then finally getting like Maggot Brain, and it's like this, and it's like, and it just comes out of nowhere. It's like where's that come from? And it is what I'm just gonna vibe. I'm just gonna kind of stream of consciousness, and this great stuff comes out,
Yep.
and it's hard not
Magic.
to, like, I'm a strong believer in that kind of style. It takes a lot of work. And,
On,
Yeah.
on, on the lyrical side, you know, I think of somebody like Leonard Cohen, like, you know, you always said, you know, like for him, writing is like going to work, it's like hard work, it's like labor. He's going, you know, he's clocking in for a day of work, and like, you know, just sitting there laboring over a song, over like one line of a lyric for like a year, 2 years, and just to, you know, because obviously when you think about him, his voice and guitar, I mean, literally what he's trying to convey, there's not a whole lot of else going on. And so, like, you know, I'm a huge fan of his words. I mean, he's just a wordsmith and just a magician when it comes to words. I mean, when I hear some of his especially of the last work as well, before he passed, in the last I think his son produced it, the last album. Some of the best songs he's ever written, and you just sit there, like, literally, you just want to weep and weep and weep just over some words and acoustic guitar. You know, just his wisdom and So I just wanted to say one thing, because, you know, I was trying to stay away from the idea that there's, you know, like, nothing out there anymore. And I know, like, you know, especially in America, because America, you know, is so commercialized, and it's so, you know, everything gets so, everything gets turned to money. So, like, any purity seems like it doesn't exist. But I think when you really look at, you know, like, there's so many artists out there that are making amazing, great music in, you know, 2021. You mean? So I think just to make sure not to do disservice to people who are actually still doing their
absolutely.
music and craft. And just to mention one, like, I'm a huge fan. Sorry, but Moses Sumney. I don't know if you guys heard of him.
Oh yeah, I totally.
It's I mean, talk about vocals and, you know, like, interesting sounds and bringing it all together. Like, it's, I mean, he's a guy, literally. I'm just a huge fan. I've been following him for the last 2 or 3 years, and he's one of those guys that literally take this kind of, you know, artistic, creative, visionary kind of, you know, like music into
very old school. You know, but I don't. I guess what I'm saying is there's like in the top part of, I like the bottom 500, the bottom 200 of the chart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's dropping.
I mean, like you said, yeah, there's nothing against, like I said, them. You know, like I said, make your money, do your thing. But like you're saying, yeah, like I'm looking for the different.
I spend my time just talking to indie artists, you know, so I find artists, like 2-3 artists a week that are not well known, and so I push the artists I think that should be getting more attention, because and people are doing it, and it's just that the industry likes to push the cookie cutter thing. And so I just like that's why I did the bedroom producer thing, because they show like 22 artists that a lot of people probably didn't know that were doing really good work in different genres all over the place, and, you know, from EDM to techno to rock to punk to folk, every genre was in there. DJs, rappers, and it wasn't, nobody was on a major label. You know, nobody was like in Billboard or Spin or any of the magazines. I thought that people should get attention. So that's what I kind of do with this show, is it even elevates me as a musician. I'm a musician. I have my own band. But I decided that I would spend part of my time like talking up other people, and by just talking up other people, then it brings my brand up, and I don't even, you know, more people listen to me than when I was just promoting me. I would, you know, have, you know, maybe 1,000 people listen to me on Spotify, and now I'm hit like 7,000. And I'm not even talking about me. I'm talking about other people. And I said, well, wow, it's weird. Like, so you pay it forward and you talk about somebody else's band, and you don't ask for anything, and you don't ask them to pay you. You just do it. It just pays you without getting any money. And I said, well, that's.
And then this is like the magic, just like with the music. So we're all talking, we're sharing information, we're conversing, and we're learning. And then you have an idea, and then, or I'll have an idea, and then boom, bam, pow. It's like gold. Here we go.
Yeah, because I think it's like if you give a platform to people, and, you know, there's a lot of big companies that want to go and own the platform. You know, that's what I started to, you know, want to branch out to, where we interview and we allow performance. So we can create a virtual venue, and we create a virtual community. And we've encouraged a lot of the artists that have come on the show have actually cross collaborated. We've had artists that have interviewed say, hey, I like this artist you talk to, and then they go and talk to each other, and they go work on a record.
Sweet.
Just what we want to happen. And I'm not like trying to, give me a piece of that. You know, no, I'm like, no, it's like, you guys do whatever you're gonna do. You know,
Mm.
I'm not trying to run it like Barry Gordy or something. It's like you
But
got
I
to
mean,
give
but
me.
because you're doing this though, I'm certain they'll come back and be like, look, so I met them through through your show, and
Mm.
now we want to do this. We want to show you what we've done together. So it's gonna come back.
Yeah, we get people coming back, and they show their project off, and then
Yeah.
we go and set it up. So now we're gonna have performances. We're trying to do the bedroom thing, 2 times a year, with the
Mm.
goal of doing it 4 times a year, with the goal of getting like corporate sponsors, but not ones that are gonna take it over and then throw in like
Mm.
the top 10 people in and take the whole thing over. 'Cause my
Yeah.
biggest fear is like I do this thing and then I don't get the bedroom producers, I don't get the underground artists, I get a bunch
Mhm.
of big artists trying to take it over.
Mm.
Yeah.
But when the money comes, like, oh, I want the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like the whole point of it is to give a shine the light on people who are not getting the light.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think I'd rather have like Lord Toff and you guys be on here than to go and bring in a big name band.
Mm.
Um, for all
Well, we are
whatever.
thankful. I thank you.
Well, because I think that's what needs to happen. Because I think the industry needs to kind of kick. Somebody needs to kick it,
It's
start it.
it's
You know,
yeah, no, it's platforms like this, that keep music alive, and I think the music community as well. Because if there's no places to go to, it
Yeah.
becomes very isolating experience. I'm sure there's a lot of musicians who give them up. They might hum in the shower, but like unless you have unless you have others that you can collaborate with, or you kind of find yourself in them, it becomes a very very lonely journey. So especially at the
Mhm.
moment, like what's going on with the with all those restrictions, and I'm a gypsy. I love to travel. A lot of my songwriting and
yeah,
ideas come from
based
the
on
road,
being on the road.
and so I'm really kind of it's not easy for me to be stuck in one place for a long time. I love seeing friends around the world that I have, and so I'm trying to get used a bit more to the online thing, and that's why I love having the opportunity to play at the festival. Just getting used to those platforms, like not as an exchange, but kind of like as an addition, and hey, as
Yeah.
another way of connecting, and
I think the thing
so
that's hard, the hard thing I've had with bands is like the lack of feedback, right?
mm,
So if you're playing, like you go play a club, whether it's a 300 seat club or a 3,000 seat club or 10,000 seat theater rate, you get the feedback of the audience.
that's right.
Mhm.
And then, musicians, I think, always need to know if they're hitting it or not hitting it,
That's right.
Yeah.
right? And then when you do these online things, it's hard to tell
Yeah.
if the audience. What I found is, like I said, I've been doing online since like 2016, and I just get myself into kind of a zone, right? I
Mm,
get excited about my own thing,
mm,
right? So if I get excited about what I'm playing, I get myself in a zone, so I'm kind of like a music zoned out. And I get it's kind of like Hendrixian, kind of like, okay, I'm gonna get into it. Like Jimmy
mm,
used to, I'm gonna just do it, right? So, and then you just focus, and I'm not gonna think about what anybody's thinking about. I'm gonna groove to my own thing and
mm.
get excited. And then it's like if I'm excited, then the
Yeah.
audience will get excited.
I'm excited.
So then you kind
I
of
think
have to,
that's how it works.
yeah. If you think of it in that way, then you can kind of bring your own excitement. Then you can bring your own enthusiasm, and you're not looking
Mhm.
for that feedback, that a
Mm.
lot of people look for. But it's hard to get yourself in that state, if you can't kind of
Yeah. If
envision
you
it.
can't blend those, yeah.
It's a very different way, and it's like for you it's probably a little easier because it's kind of like more like a studio thing. Like you playing, it's almost like playing in a studio, working like sounds and
Yeah,
working things out. But when you perform or like a singer songwriter, it's literally the conversation with an audience, which kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
falls away
You
when
kind of
you
dependent on
like it's kind of like sitting in front of the mirror. I'm singing to myself, so it's kind of it takes a lot away, So and I think too it's interesting. I love like OK Computer from Radiohead, which kind of like was at the end of the 90s and was talking about like what we're moving into. And I think like this whole conversation about technology, it's here to stay. Obviously, it's great. Like it's great tools we can use, but also it also presents us with a lot of challenges and a lot of kind of like disconnection. Like it's cold. It is like not so
Yeah.
personal. Like because we humans we need each other. And the
Yeah.
last year and a half is such a prime example of that conversation about this fine line between taking advantage of technology but not let technology take advantage of us. So it's kind of like this, it's this fine balancing act between those two, and making sure that you don't, I guess, let go of the human aspect of it. Like And yeah, that's just me. Like I'm really, I miss shows. I miss playing shows, being, around people, being in the studio together. Yeah, because I feel like, to be honest, my artistic growth has been stalled a lot because I spend a lot of time on my own, like, family life, work life,
Yeah.
and I have so many ideas. But the problem is, for the really to kind of get snowballing, I need somebody else in there, like, for
you want
to speed up.
you want a full you want a full like backup, like studio musicians to be able to, like I was watching this documentary with Peter Gabriel, right, and he was doing so. And he went and like handpicked all the people that he's going to work with, and he had been in Genesis, well, I think the best singer for Genesis, but his solo work is he would build this team. And he would go find like, I want this guy because he's a really good drummer. I want this sax player. I want this. And he would just go build his team. And he's a solo artist. He's writing everything, but he found people that actually, help write the songs. Because it's like, okay, I want this guy. He had a rule: no cymbals, no hi-hats. And then the drummer came and said, "We gotta have the hi-hat. We gotta have the song." So they argued, and he convinced Peter, "You gotta bring the hi-hat in." And it's like, and that's the kind of thing you want, because like he had his mind set on like, I'm not gonna have any hi-hat. I'm not no hi-hat at all. And then suddenly the guy said, "Well, I can show you hi-hat that you're gonna want." And then he did it, and I was like, well, that's cool. That's why you want to work with people, because I think he changed his mind. He's like, now he actually proved a point, and I was like, that's what you want. The guy's going to come in and alter what your mindset was, and actually bring something to the song.
I mean, again, talk about Perfectly Alone as well. I mean, I was listening to just the instrumental. I was like, I couldn't hear like where it was going, and then basically I heard Ebony's voice, like, oh wow, like it's funny how you put the voice on top of the guitar and it makes so much sense, because like when I was playing the guitar, it's a little lick, whatever, but me personally, I wouldn't really sing to it, like, because the way I sing is different. And when she started singing, it was just a perfect match. And again, like, it takes things or ideas like onto a whole nother level. And doesn't take like, you don't have to have a 10-man crew, even just one other person that can say, oh man, I like this, and jump in and create something bigger than you might have
just
done
a
on
duo, because if you get like, think about like Hall and Oates, like you get Daryl Hall by himself, he sounds a certain way. Once you bring Oates in, and his part is subtle, because Daryl's like singing the lead on everything, but then when Oates comes in, he does this kind of harmony, he does these back and vocals, he doesn't sing every word, but the combination of the both of them is like Simon and Garfunkel. When you get these teams, right, it's the team, of Flavor Flav and Chuck D. When you get the team coming in, you get this different sound when two people come in, and you get the Beatles, for example, like 4 personalities, or the Who, like 4 personalities, like Pink Floyd, like 5 different guys coming in and then bring in their piece. And when you get that kind of elaboration, it's interesting, because like I've collaborated with people over time, and I do stuff, but a lot of times I'm by myself. And what I do is I use analog synths, and analog synths are like people in a way compared to digital synths. They have their own kind of mind. They kind of just go off and they do things you don't expect. And so I've been able to use them as like members of my band, because they randomly go and do things I don't expect, and then I use it. And it's kind of weird. I'm a techie, but like the analog synths have this kind of warmth and vibe to them that if I didn't have them, I'd probably sound kind of stale and digital and not interesting. But when you have these machines that they could take 20, 30 minutes to warm up, and when you turn them on one day, they sound this way, and turn them on the next day, they sound a different way. And they can do things you don't expect. And so in that way, you can have like, I can have all these different machines actually being members of my band. And I've actually kind of written my band up as like, these are like ghosts in the machine, and we're all ghosts, and we're all kind of talking, and we're speaking this like electronic language that's like PEG, which is Family Like a Ghost. But I think it's interesting. Like, people have to find a way to do what they need to do to communicate in this age where you can't always be in the same room.
And I think also like just go with it as well. Like I love my acoustic stuff, but I also love to collaborate and work in different ways. Like sending tracks somewhere, and somebody sends me maybe a piano part, like low top, say, hey, you filling on something, and I'm sitting down. And again, I love when I love playing with people's ideas, like people painting a bit of a soundscape, and then I can actually put my vocals on it, which is very different than using a guitar, because the guitar kind of puts me a little bit in a box. I
You're
can't
kind of
go
like in a box, like
exactly. And
you only have a certain range.
I love just writing and just singing, because then I can actually don't have to worry about the guitar, and I love that way of working as well, which is really good when you're not in the same room. It's a really great way. And that's what we're working at the moment. There's a few songs. The next one I think is To the Reef. I think it's one song that we're working on at the moment. So we're trying to put together a little EP, myself and Lotov. So he's fiddling on some more soundscapes, and I'm working on some lyrics. So that's another thing working on at the moment.
I think that's always what I love about electronic music is you can go anywhere. Like I can go like the funkadelic direction, or I could go like the Pink Floyd direction. Right? So then you can kind of go classical or psychedelic, or or kind of jazz oriented. And so because you're on a keyboard instrument that's kind of based on the piano and organ, you have a lot of different ways you can go. And then you can work with other people, and you can do all this layering. And it just gives you like you're not like stuck in a box.
Yeah.
Like if you decide, well, I want to go and do some bossa nova, I want to do it, like you can just do whatever you're gonna do. You don't feel restricted, and you can just like, okay, today I'm gonna actually go try to do a 1920s flapper song. That's what I feel like doing.
Absolutely.
You just go wherever you're gonna go.
I think me and Lord Toff actually, not even I think, I know that we put together a song, and I think it's like I'm 95% certain it's called Stop That Noise, and it's pretty much about that, like just not being in that box, like just do other things. Because I'm telling him like, what am I hearing? Stop that noise. Don't be different. And he's just like, and he comes in and his voice, and it's so smooth. And we're gonna have to get that back together because that is needed. But yeah, it's really really good. I think it's the first song that he and I ever did together. Like together, like he's produced stuff for me, but I think like that he actually got on a track with me, and I was just like, yes.
You want that? That's what that's the whole goal. And like, I think it's just so fun to collaborate with people, And I've done a bunch of stuff. I did this thing with this Canadian poet, and she does this really interesting poetry, Kaede Lynn, and she had never really put it to music. She just has this really good voice. And it's really kind of stark, kind of kind of dark, poetry. But then so I decided, well, what happens if I put some of my kind of techno, like Joy Division like sound behind what you're doing? And it was a cool project because it was like not something she ever thought she wanted to do. And we went and did it. And it's just something that we weren't trying to do, like something it's going to hit the top 10. We just wanted to do something that kind of, I wanted to fit into her vibe.
Yeah.
And then just do it. And it's okay, we'll put it out and see what happens. And I do projects here and there just because it's like, oh, I think this person's voice is interesting, or I like the way they play bass, or I like the way they play piano. And it's just go do it. And it's like, because we're free in this indie world, I'm going to have the label, can I work with this person?
No,
can I do it? It's like, no, I'm just going to do whatever I want. But I think that's, I mean, you have to pay the bills and you do what you got to do. But
yeah,
I think it's cool to have full freedom.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what I love about this whole like indie world is letting people say what they want to say. And not saying, oh, the advertisers aren't going to allow that.
Like, sorry, I can't talk about that. Next question. How are you doing? Like, yeah.
I can't talk about it because they're going to pull me.
I actually think that the music pays the bills. Like, I think it's important that you actually keep the music going, because that's what nurtures you. It's what keeps you going. Because if you don't take care of yourself and expressing yourself, I think it gets very hard to do all the other stuff. And that's that's the and I know, like, we like to look at the bills and all the responsibilities, and then trying to squeeze in the artistry at the end. But I think it's really important to give it the importance. Even other people might not get it. They're like, oh, what do you mean? Like, you have 2 people coming to your show, even nobody knows you. Why are you spending so much time on it? Because it's part
It's
of,
important. Yeah, this is. I
You know,
mean,
yeah, I, mean, I think music is very important, and a lot of people like I always tell people like one of my favorite poets, William Blake. You know, he's a farmer. He never got popular. He was gone. You know, people found his artwork in his barn. All these plates. He did all the songs of innocence and experience are actually on these metal plates, etched in acid.
wow.
They have
Gee.
artwork that go with like Tiger, Tiger, Fearful Thy Symmetry, that famous Blake poem. All those poems are on these art plates of metallic drawings. He
Wow.
was an artist, art like a metallic artist, and he had these plates. So every single song of experience and innocence is on a plate with a really intricate drawing with the poem embellished into it. And people found him and then say, wow, this guy's one of the greatest poets of the Victorian era. But nobody even knew who he was until he was
right.
gone, you know? And
But here's the thing, it also doesn't matter. That's exactly the thing, because again, through like an American commercialized Disney, I don't know, Warner Brothers lens, everything has to be turned into gold, into money. And when you think about, like, if it's actually just part of your, like I mean, back in the day, like the people in the fields, like they're just singing because it was part of sustaining them, keeping them alive. I mean, they didn't, like, and they did, like, a lot of this, I looked into, like, Sweden, how Sweden has been so big in the pop scene, like, with producers and songwriters, like, and they were saying that in Sweden, songwriting is just something people do, like, like the knitting, or like,
and you just
looking
do
in
it.
a garden.
It's just a
People
skill.
just writing songs. It's
It's
just part of,
right.
it's not like I want to be a star, I want to be, but it's just like everybody just writes songs. It's just like they do in their spare time, you mean? And I love this, the Irish too, like the Irish, music is a big part of their culture, what they do, you mean? And you
It's
don't
like
have to
the
be a
blues.
star.
Yeah, it's like the
Yeah.
Delta blues. Like the Delta blues, you get to, like, Robert Johnson, you get the music in Louisiana, right? All these British acts like mined that work, from the Yardbirds to Zeppelin to Stones, all of them, they mined the American Southern black rock, blues, got turned into multi-million dollar, billions of dollars. And the guys who wrote it, they never got like
Then
Not a penny, not a
one
penny.
penny from it. But, but you got like Jack White and Keith Richards, they try to give back to those artists, and they've been doing stuff to try to help them out. But the fact is, a lot of them didn't do anything. But that is kind of like, that was the DNA. It was like you said, they came from the cotton fields. How did you get a Robert Johnson? How did you get a Lead Belly? It was that tradition of that pain, and those blues guys could take that pain and put it into music. And it became like what rock and roll is, that black blues music electrified and made a little bit more popular. But I think but to me it's like Hendrix took it back.
Yeah.
Like when he was around for the 3 years that he was in the spotlight, he like owned it, and he still is like the greatest guitar player ever walked the planet, and nobody can match him, because he actually was the bones of that. He was that tradition and actually did it at a level that nobody else did. So I always get a little offended when people act like black guys don't play rock.
Yeah.
Like, what about Hendrix?
But, yeah, I mean, again, it's the music industry, like, all the putting people in boxes, and like coming up with all those rules and making sure that you can't even access your own culture anymore. Like, that's you came up with this, but you can't, oh no, you're black, you have to go there, and you have to do this, and you're white, you have to go there. So I mean, and again, that's why I love artists who basically, like, who are just known and famous for being artists, because they just had to express themselves. I mean, and just give a little credit, like, to some female artists that inspired me, like Björk. When it comes to electronic music, Björk is somebody who just, I mean, her visuals, like the videos she's done 20 years ago, computerized videos, which were like so ahead of time, and her sound, we just think, where is she coming from? Like, or Kate Bush in the 80s, like, like she was a woman in the 80s having her own studio, basically telling men what to do in the 80s. And she was basically having, like, 18 years old, having a #1 hit, and like with 20.
She was like a total leader. She's a leader of that movement. Because almost every female artist today gets compared, that's doing like really experimental work, to like Kate Bush or Bjork, or like the Tori Amos of the world, Laurie Anderson. They get compared into that world. Compared, you get the Beyoncés and you get Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston. But when you get to like the people who are doing this like art rock, you get Kate Bush, and you get that kind of direction.
And also having like a vision as artists, what they're going to look like, and like how they put themselves out there, like in
Yeah,
like an
something
image in
that's like
videos.
not what Bjork was doing was not at all what was popular. She was like a total, she was doing like Andy Warhol type stuff. She's pushing it in a way that the women hadn't been pushing it like that. You get a guy like Warhol, he was okay, he can do that, right? But then you get somebody like her doing that. She came in the scene and she had this very different vibe, and you're like, wow, that's kind of like for outer space, And you got FK Twigs, I think, is doing that. Does that kind of thing. She FK Twigs, so she comes out there and she has that kind of vibe. She's like, wow, she just brings this thing, and like, where's that coming from? And like Sade had a vibe.
Oh yeah.
You just like brings
She
onto
still
the
does.
stage.
She still
Yeah,
does.
she's like
Every 10
like
years,
a
I
queen.
come out when I've got songs. 10 years, I've got something to say. I come out. So she's one of the
She
all-time
comes
greats.
out, everybody listens because she's like the queen. She's like,
Yeah.
I love Beyonce, but like I'm kind of like, I came from the time period when she showed up, and I'm like, oh my god, like Sade is like she's it for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to see her. I got to see her like about 10 years ago when she did her last album. She came here to Melbourne, and I mean, I don't even know what to say. One of the best concerts I've ever seen. Like barefoot and literally just holding the audience, and like she was just so sharp and
With the
without
production,
having to do much. Whatever she did was so drew you in, and
well, her
amazing.
band is so good. The band she picked, and the people she works with, like Maxwell works with the same people.
Yeah.
It's like and he's a brilliant guy too. I like
Maxwell actually this woman's world is Kate Bush's song.
Yeah, his version is amazing. But he showed props to that because but I love his work. He has amazing work. He's kind of like a Prince. He's like an unsung, really good producer, and he's very good. I think he hurt his voice a little bit. I think he strained his vocal. He actually bust a vocal cord or something.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why we haven't heard from him for a while, because he kind of hurt his voice. But well, I think we're kind of we're top end of what we do. We're over an hour, but we like to kind of just vibe and talk. And so this has been live on my Facebook, Twitch, YouTube channels. We are going to also, with our partners on Anchor FM, this will be on Spotify and Apple Podcast and like 9 other platforms on the audio podcast platform. So we'll push this out. We'll have a story on our Instagram that links the Spotify version within an hour. So we're happy to have you guys come back on the show anytime you want to push any projects.
Yeah, I'm ready when you are.
And we're definitely going to be doing like the phase 2 of the producer festival, probably targeting for November, December 2021.
Nice.
And it is going to become a regular thing that we're going to be doing. So, start planning for it, because we're going to do it.
Absolutely.
Just want to thank you. Really appreciate you, like I said, providing this platform and giving indie artists an opportunity to have those conversations and share what they're doing. Phantom Electric Ghost and myself, we're trying to figure out a few things at the moment too. He's sending me a few synth tracks, so we might have something coming too down the track. Down the track. Who knows?
I write all day. I write all day. So you see my babies.
Sweet. Yes.
But Ebony, I definitely would love to come back. Like once we've got something finished, like the single.
Okay. Absolutely.
I gotta get Lord Toff on here. He did the audio version of my podcast. Okay. He's never done the video version, so.
We gotta get him.
I gotta get him on. I already talked to him about it, but he's he's doing what he's doing. But he's gonna be on some point. But I'm really thankful that he introduced me to you guys. I give him props for that, because
and vice versa. Very thankful, grateful.
Gotta send our love to Lord Tuff and the Monte Cristo crew. So
the Cristo crew.
That's our family. That's our home.
Yeah, you guys are awesome, and we really appreciated that you took part in the festival. That was the first time we ever tried anything like that, and you guys were a big part of it. And a lot of people been telling me they liked you guys' performance and they want to know more about you guys. So that's why we have this show. So now people can know more about who you guys are. And I encourage everybody to go out and hit the links that we have that we have attached to this podcast. And so we have links for you. And we're going to push this out to the world and see what happens, because that's what we do. Thank you very much for
Beautiful.
participating. We'll talk to you guys.
Thank you. Thank
Have a great
you.
one.
Okay, bye.
Namaste.
Yeah.